Hey everybody, this is Kyle with Attack of the Fanboy. I am here at PAX East 2016. It's the final day, the final hour of the show. So essentially, I'm going to try and wrap up the last 3 insane days. I am exhausted, but I have seen a ton of fantastic games, met a lot of really good people. So let's just wrap it up. So essentially, PAX East 2016 came down to 2 big things: VR and class-based shooters. Those were everywhere. So going with VR, you had Oculus demos, you had PlayStation VR demos, you had HTC Vive demos all across the floor. I got to try out some Oculus and some PlayStation, and really they're impressive. You should see my impressions of the PlayStation VR specifically on our YouTube channel, so check that out to get a full breakdown of just how that is working and how that's coming along and what the games are like on there. But overall, just talking to people and hearing people talk in line, you just heard them talking over and over about virtual reality. The lines for those games, no matter what the game was, if it was a AAA title, if it was the Oculus standalone booth, or if it was just an indie game back in the corner that had an Oculus setup, that line was longer than almost any other line in the show. People are obsessed with VR, and they wanted to get a taste of it here. And from what we're hearing, people are coming away pretty impressed. We got to look at Faded on the Oculus Rift, and you should check out our interview with the developer on that as well. That was an amazing experience. It was enhanced a little bit because they had kind of a really cool setup, but it seems like that will translate at least partially to what you get in your home. People were also interested in motion controllers. There were some Oculus Touch controllers out on the show floor, and people were obsessed with checking those out. So it seems like people are excited for VR, and VR is delivering on the promise that technology has been giving players for 3 or 4 years now. So we'll have to wait and see once these games actually get into people's hands and once people actually get their VR headsets in their homes. But right now, people are really excited for it. So the other thing that was all over the show floor were the class-based shooters. You had Overwatch, of course, and that was a massive hit. Lines were capped all weekend. People were waiting 2-3 hours to try out that game. Then you had Lawbreakers right across the aisle from them, which is the new game from Cliff Bleszinski, and that is another class-based shooter. It's a different take on it. The characters weren't as strong an influence for that game. Overwatch really relies on its characters and its story, and Lawbreakers has a story, but so far they haven't really introduced us to that world, and we only got to see 4 different classes, 4 different characters, and they weren't as unique as you see in Overwatch, but the gameplay was still solid. So it's interesting to see those 2 battle it out. And then, of course, you also have Battleborn from 2K, another class-based shooter. So these things are really taking off and becoming a big part of gaming. These 3 games all had people lining up for hours to see them, and everyone seemed happy with all of them in different ways. So which one will be the top one? No one really knows. My money's on Blizzard and Overwatch, but they're all 3 really good. So keep an eye on all 3 of those if you're interested in that genre. And of course, this is PAX, so those are the AAA games. Microsoft also had a presence here with Gears of War and Quantum Break and Mirror's Edge, but that's a little muted. Those people come to PAX to check that stuff out, but the big story is always the indies. PAX is all about the indies and finding some hidden gem back in this expo hall that no one's heard of before, and I think that we've done that with a few games that we've played. Death by Daylight was a really cool multiplayer game where it's asymmetrical. You have one person playing as a psychotic murderer, and the other 4 players are survivors just trying to make it to an exit. So they have to work together and repair these generators, stuff like that. So that was a really cool indie game. Outlast 2 we got to check out. We'll have an interview with the developer on our site. So that is living up to the promise of the first one. If you like that one, you'll definitely want to check this one out. And then there were some smaller games. I mean, you had Scale was in here, and that's still looking really promising. If you've ever seen anything about that, where you can kind of shrink and grow objects in the world. And then even kind of going a little bit smaller, there was a a PAX Rising area where they're kind of trying to get these indie developers built up. And one of the games there was called Death Stare, and it was honestly one of the most fun games that I played at the show. It's a multiplayer game. You have 2v2. Two people are flinging things down a set of stairs while two other people are trying to climb them. Seems simple, seems maybe stupid, but it's stupid fun. And there's more strategy to it actually with the different types of weapons. So you can really get into the game, get into its mechanics. And that's what indies do well. They take this small idea and branch it out into a really big, fun game. And you saw that a lot here. There were a couple of other party games. Marooners was really fun. That's kind of like a WarioWare mixed with Mario Party. Insanity. It would just bounce between these games, and whoever came out on top came out, and you had no idea what was happening the whole time. But it somehow worked, and it was fun the whole time. Push Me Pull You was another kind of party-esque game. I can't even really describe it. It's a sports kind of game. You'll have to check out some trailers for that because there's no way to describe this game. But tons and tons of games were a lot of fun here. Those two topics, virtual reality and class-based shooters, kind of stole the show. They were the big thing people wanted to check out, but of course, the indies were also fun. So I think that is about it for PAX East 2016. We have a lot of content for it. Keep an eye on the site, attackthefanboy.com. I will have hands-on previews for at least a dozen games. I didn't keep track. We have developer interviews, we'll have impressions, all that sort of stuff on attackthefanboy.com and youtube.com/fanboyattack. Thanks for joining us. I'm going to go have a seat. Thanks.